some radio feeds.
Well, thank you. Hopefully everybody's not too sleepy after lunch. And the heat. And thanks, definitely Pat and the Broncos for the presentation, ending the tour with showing us what a control room can do.
Can I say something, Rick?
No.
Okay.
Yes, you may.
The open video, no audio, was operator error.
OE.
I will raise my hand on that. But that is the missing element, right? I mean, as much as we build technology, et cetera, it's about the people operating the equipment and the brains behind it. So, my fault on that. But hopefully, you enjoyed the horse at the end. So,
yes.
I was able to get that one right.
No, and I will have to say, having spent a year here in 2013 with these guys, it really is about, this panel discussion is about maximizing the control room, maximizing that investment. Well, the key way to do that is with solid people. And I know Pat and Jeremy and the guys here, they live and breathe and are so passionate about this business and what they do that it makes, it shows on the school board, and it in and of itself is a maximization of resources and the investment that this team made. So anyway, I want to introduce myself, Rick Price, president and founder of MOEBAM Venue Media Services. We specialize in operational consulting and creative services for teams, specifically in the area of IPTV, specializing in the IPTV's digital signage space, but helping teams launch after major renovations or new builds or something like that. So filling in the gap as an operational consulting and creative services to help them manage the content amount, the content creation services, and just the operational awareness that needs to be made after these fabulous guys install all that amazing technology, and it's all about helping the teams understand what they have and how to use it. So this panel is really talking about the control room. We've got 3 system integrators. We've got Ross, system vendor, and then of course Pat Jordan. So I'll just run through introduction real quick, and then I'll come back and I'll ask each one of you to kind of talk about maybe some projects that you guys are working on, something exciting, something that's fun to talk about, each one of you. You've already heard a lot from Pat. We're going to go into some things with Pat later. So we have Jeff Volk, VP of Alpha Video, and we have Duane Yoslov, Senior VP of Diversified Systems, Kevin Cottam, the Business Development Manager who was up here earlier, Sports and Live Events, Ross Video, and John FitzRandolph, Fitz as I call him, as everybody calls him, he's VP of Engineering for BeckTV. So 3 system integrators and a vendor. Starting with you, Jeff, tell us about what Alpha Video is doing, what your area of expertise is, and something exciting about what's happening with Alpha Video.
Sure. So I'm Jeff Volk, Vice President of Sports and Entertainment at Alpha Video, which you actually just heard. I think we signed last week our 55th, roughly, control room deal. So we've been in this space for a little over a decade. The entertainment side of our business on the digital signage and IPTV side of things has deployed about 1,600 IPTV systems and signage systems in the casino and gaming space, and about 5,000 deployments overall. And we also do a lot of team facility things. So from a venue perspective, we really encompass everything from a team, from the stuff that you're using to enhance the team to engage your fans. I just found out earlier, and I was teasing Chris, that there's no coincidence that we also integrated Chris's 2 favorite projects of the last year, the Jacksonville Jaguars and PNC Park, which you saw some examples of earlier. The Jacksonville Jaguars project was probably our most exciting project as well. When you talk about technology and automation and maximizing what you're doing from a control room perspective, that project has 24 MEs of switching. I might be off by an ME or 2. They use all of it but one to stitch those 8K video boards together. They have 24 channels of replay, 8 channels of expression graphics, some crossfires, an 8K server. There's a whole lot of elements that go into that, including 2 Ross production switchers, one to switch what they call football, which is the live game action, and another one that just switches, everything else that goes on in the stadium, all automated through Spider to the Daktronics displays. So that's probably our most exciting project of the last year or so.
Duane?
Our projects right now, we're working on the Honda Center down in Anaheim, and we're doing a total refit on the sound, forklift upgrade of the sound system, as well as the video replay control room. Also working on Stanford Maples Center, redoing their video control room right now. UC Berkeley, redoing the video control room at Haas Pavilion, and we recently finished up a renovation of the Oakland A's for this season. Total refit there, and a couple other projects that we're just getting into the early phase of design on. So pretty full house in terms of stadium projects right now. I think our numbers are probably pretty similar in terms of the number of stadium and control rooms that we've completed. I think we're in the 60 to 70 range at this point right now. But
Why do you always have to one-up me?
yeah, I mean, you know, it's all about one-up. Diversified is, as the name suggests, pretty diverse in our service offerings and goes beyond the control room. We have a division of the company called Diversified Media Group, which is our signage group. Similarly, we're managing content networks for multiple retail environments, as well as stadium environments. And in addition, we've got Skyweb TV, which is our IPTV group, which focuses primarily on IP for commercial installations throughout the stadium and arena market. So across the three companies, we're very busy right now. It's, as we were laughing about before we started, that there's lots of food on the table right now and lots of work to go around. Nobody's really complaining all that much, but it's a good time to be in the business.
Awesome. Fitz, we'll skip down to you. Sorry, Kevin. Skip down to Fitz.
I'm John Fitz with BeckTV, formerly Beck Associates. We hired a marketing firm to change our name to BeckTV, but we're still the same old engineers we were back before. We're a little more widespread, diversified in our clientele. We primarily grew up in the broadcast business, broadcast television business, and recently we've broadened that scope out into the mobile business. We build large mobile units for some of the big mobile companies in the country. We've stepped into the house of worship, and we've moved into sports, primarily with the Denver group. We have three offices, one in Austin, Texas, this office in Denver, and the office in New Jersey. The New Jersey guys pretty much stick around the New York area, and Austin and Denver cover the rest of the country. So we have a wide base of customers, and we don't have anywhere near the numbers of arenas and stadiums as our competition does. We like to think we do less of them and we do them better. Since I can't beat them on numbers, I got to beat them on something. You notice that they've separated us with someone between us. So that's Beck Associates, and we build the Denver Broncos. You probably heard my name mentioned a couple times in the earlier meetings.
Yeah, right. So you guys are the control room system integrator for this project.
And we're currently working on the San Antonio Spurs.
San Antonio Spurs project? Gotcha.
We like one a year. We're like 1 a year, 2 a year is enough. You know, we like to be in this business. We enjoy the business. We enjoy the people in it mostly. They're a little bit different than the people you run into the broadcast businesses. You run into tremendous egos in the broadcast business. You run into real people in the sports business.
So Kevin, talk about, we've talked, and certainly a lot of discussion about some of the projects that, you know, obviously you're providing the product for a lot of these control rooms. But more importantly, it's not just that you're providing the product. Talk about some of the challenges you've helped overcome, you know, the services that you're providing, you know, and then also maybe you know, what are some of the products that you do have that you find are really gaining momentum in this particular space?
Right. I guess I think the most important part of venue productions is integration and being able to have all those products integrate, not only your products, but third-party products as well, and be able to, to get everything to basically trigger or, have something happen with a command from a central location. So I think that's one of the most important things that I see, and that's where we've really, working with the Broncos, which was my favorite project, to be honest.
Absolutely.
But, and there's been all kinds since then. But, that's something that I think has really taken off in this industry and being able to, be able to do that. And previously we used to be able to do it with production switchers and be able to control all the different devices and trigger them with macros. Ross Video has a lot of different products now. We started out as a switcher company back in '73, and now we've got switchers and a whole, a whole product breadth of different switchers and different sizes. We've also got graphic systems, we've got control systems, automation systems, robotic heads, all kinds of different gear. So we've got a lot of different products. But in this space, the production switcher is sort of that main piece in the control room that can reach out to all the different devices and trigger different products and different elements. But the graphics these days is definitely the product that's really taken off, right? And that's definitely a way, you've got your data integration and the look and the feel, and that's how I think teams can really separate themselves from other teams, is the creation of the graphics and who, the design of those graphics and how they use them. We're getting into an age where all this data is coming in, and you've got, the GSIS information and social media and everything else, and having a way in a product to be able to easily, take that information, parse it, and be able to display it is something that's very important. I think that's what really separates the different teams lately. But I think, our graphic system expression is something that's really taken off in the industry, and that's probably the most popular product now within Ross Video. But being able to use our dashboard control system to be able to trigger those devices and everything else, you don't need to be a graphics operator to be able to operate the board anymore, right? You can just create your own template and your own user interface to trigger all the different events and stats and such. So, but yeah, graphics I think is really, the graphics system that we have is really the product that has taken off the most and is the most popular currently.
Can you touch on just a little bit, because I kind of missed it and saw the video, what Chris was mentioning earlier about the Pirates project, and that it's actually an SD board, or what was, walk through that.
Yeah, it's an SD board. So they decided to do a control room upgrade, but they didn't upgrade the displays. That's something else that Jeff touched on, that they worked on both of those projects. So did Ross Video with the Jacksonville Jaguars as well as the Pittsburgh Pirates. But Matt Zidek with the Pittsburgh Pirates had a real vision of what he wanted to accomplish and how he would do that. And we started working, probably 6 months, 8 months before the project on just the workflow, and I brought in our creative team. So Ross also offers creative services now to help build out expression projects. So we do the design, project templatization, and then as well as on-site services to get everything up and running. But working with them, it's an SD board, but they're still feeding it. To my knowledge, it's still an HD feed, but they're down converting. And to be able to do, I think the scene that you guys saw that Chris Williams showed is one, it's one channel of expression. So over 3,000 objects within that one scene. So this is, by far the most aggressive, project or, creative graphic design that's been done within the industry, I think, to my knowledge anyway. And then building a control system to actually control it all and have everything just sort of automate. So, people that are actually using that system don't need to sit in front of the expression to actually operate it. There's still the traditional workflow where you're recalling fonts and you've got that traditional operator there. But we were actually able to go in and just build out a control system to be able to control that board, what stats you're representing, what, or displaying. So it was a very exciting project. There was, there's always some challenges in there. And once you start really putting the pressure on and doing some really creative and groundbreaking things, the cracks start to show. But working with Alpha Video and the Pirates and Daktronics, and there was a pile of vendors in there. We all worked together and accomplished a very cool and cutting edge production.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So we're here to talk about control rooms, and mostly, obviously we know the primary purpose of the control room is, to drive those LED boards out there. And that's certainly the traditional perspective of what the video control room is. But certainly it's evolving into much more than that. Kind of want to go I'll go down the row here, and then Duane has a slide that we're going to address when we get to that to him. Talk to me about how do you see the place and the role of the video, I won't even call it a video control, of the control room, in the ecosystem for a team and for a venue nowadays, and how is that changing from what it was maybe 5 years ago? So talk about how it fits into the ecosystem of a venue.
Sure. I think today the control room has become much more than an LED display. We were just talking with an ownership group the other day for a client and explaining to them that really it's not just putting video on the LED displays. That's now the aggregation point of your IPTV system. You're collecting your social media and fan interaction there. You're connecting your other displays throughout the venue, your marquees, your fascia, your televisions throughout the facility. You're also driving handheld and forward-facing fan mobile devices via Wi-Fi. So it's really become more of a fan engagement center than a production control room for all clients. Really then, from the team perspective, it really serves a couple of different masters. Our pro sports clients, depending on the team and what rights they have to create different content, it's now become the same thing, except our NFL clients are adding production studios because they're cranking out their own television shows or all of the NFL Now content that they have to create. And in the college space, where we do a lot of work through SEC Network, the soon-to-be launched ACC Network, which I think is the worst kept secret in the television industry, the Big Ten Network, all the ESPN3 platform stuff that people are doing. The control room now has become not only what you're using to drive your video boards, but much like what the Broncos did with their lacrosse game, is driving actual television broadcast. And so when a lot of our college clients, it's become not just a discussion of one control room, it's a discussion of 2 or 3 or 4 control rooms and 1 or 2 studios and not 1 edit bay, but 4 or 5 edit bays because there's such a demand for content. So it's really become much, much more.
Duane, you want to jump in on what Diversified's perspective of what the control room is this day and age?
It's, it parrots a lot of what Jeff just said, is the control room is no longer, tied to strictly the LED board show. It is all about fan engagement on multiple levels, both feeding into social media and taking social media information and feeding that back through the LED show. You have a digital presence.
I think we have a slide if you want to show your slide. Can we go to this?
Yeah, that slide's interesting. Actually, credit Brad Fisher out in the audience there. He put that slide together, and he was using that to wrap his head around, just how tied in the control room is to so many other elements within the control room environment or within the stadium environment. You end up, you may touch, marketing, point of sale, the broadcast feeds, feeding them taking information from you. We walked through on this tour the interview room, which is after the game, and a lot of times I brought up to Mike Bonner, the idea of having the digital background there, and a lot of times that's fed by the control room and being able to, have a dynamic background, be able to feed back clips and plays during those interview sessions, proves really, extremely powerful in what they can do in sharing content between their broadcast partners and rights holders. But the slide is a good illustration of, just how many different things that a control room touches in day-to-day workflow. It's no longer this purely LED board show. I started building these control rooms in 1990, I think it was my first control room, and back then it was all about getting a little bit of replay video on the screen, and might be chasing dots around a race course for the fan engagement. Now it's just so much more. And you see the control room, and you mentioned how they might have, instead of 1 edit bay or 2 edit bays, they might be getting half a dozen edit bays associated with production. And those edit bays are, taking content and sharing it back and forth during game in progress, building highlight reels that they can play, at a quarter break or a halftime or in between an inning break. And you get some amazing fan feedback as part of that. But it's, by example, San Francisco Giants, they've actually formed that group. They've given it a separate name. It's San Francisco Giants Productions, and they'll do commercial work outside of the San Francisco Giants where their advertisers enjoy working with them so much. They're doing commercial work, and it's become a revenue center for them. So,
Yeah, that's, so that you alluded to the next point that I want to talk about is examples from each of you, and we'll specifically, we can talk, well, Pat can allude to it, how teams are maximizing the resource of the control room operationally in ways that they never expected to, right? Maybe even ways that they weren't necessarily thought of and designed in the idea, but based on the capability of the technology and obviously the capability of the people running it, some ways that maybe beyond game day, outside of game day, how teams are maximizing that multi-million-dollar investment, and maybe even generating new revenue. So you talked about the San Francisco Giants. It's a great example of opportunities. Pat, kind of talk about the idea of you doing those, of the broadcasts out of the control room. And, obviously that's probably a revenue generator as well, in addition to the fact that I really want to know how'd you do that and do the in-arena scoreboard show at the same time.
Well, Jeremy Wecker did some engineering gymnastics, first of all. It is a challenge to produce basically a scoreboard show along with a broadcast. But fortunately, we have a lot of tools in that control room to make it happen and make it happen easily, despite the gymnastics that Jeremy needs to do. But we do, this year we did broadcast 3 of the MLL games that did occur here, along with doing the scoreboard show. We did high school football last December with Altitude. They basically, Altitude had their announcers back at their studios, and we basically shot it, LTN'd it out to them, and those were 2 really good sources of broadcast revenue. But we kind of alluded earlier that this building does approximately 300 events a year.
Yep.
A lot of those events are in the space that we're in today. So we monetize, basically the televisions in this space, utilizing the IPTV system, generating, sponsorship graphics, et cetera. I mean, our IPTV system, the Cisco Stadium Vision, is used on a daily basis for, our clients that do come into the building. But probably the biggest, piece that we do monetize is the, South Scoreboard. We've put a pretty heavy price tag on that for anyone that comes in this facility and wants to, put their logo, their company logos, et cetera, up there. You cannot find a display like that, anywhere close to this, region. So we really concentrate on those and providing a good service there. So yeah.
Fitz, what you talked about as this project was going on our phone call earlier. Asset management, Duane touched on it a little bit, but the importance of maximizing the control room is maximizing the assets that you have. Talk about where that sits right now, how that it wasn't necessarily part of the design of this project, but obviously it ultimately came about, and Pat kind of squirreled away some money.
I approach it from a little different perspective, having come from an operations background into the engineering side later in life. And to me, I look at it at the scoreboard control room from an ownership perspective as a tremendous investment. There's a lot of money pours into those rooms.
Yep.
For what? And then I look at the other side of it and I say, what is Pat and his company and his people that work for him? They're a service organization to ownership. And their whole goal is to provide services. And the more places they can touch ownership's needs, the more value they are to the organization, and the more will feed back into them as staff, new equipment, remodels, et cetera. So it's really about, taking a piece of technology that we put in there, which is, it's a gorgeous room, it's got lots of really cool stuff in it. Without people there to turn that into support for the organization, it's useless. So as an engineer, I love building it, and then what I like the best, though, is to watch the operations people take it and do something with it that I never imagined they would do. And during the process of building Broncos, and this was also true in Cleveland and true in several of the college places that we've been involved in, it's as I watch the operations people start to engage with the technology, I see that they see visions that I never imagined they would see. And they see how they can turn those things into support to the organization. The more you can support the organization, the more support you're going to get back. That's something the Broncos do exceptionally well. They've learned how to support the Valley as well as this building.
Right.
There's an awful lot of control rooms that focus on the building they're in, and this is our job. We feed the scoreboard, or we feed the center hung. That's what we do. And they lose track of they're part of a massive organization that there's a lot of ways to support. And they're supporting through the website, they're supporting through the Valley and editing and public relations, et cetera, for the whole organization. So it's what happens is you wait for the operations people to get in there and launch the technology, and then you watch. And it's, for me, the most moving moment I had in probably all of my construction phase was I came to this facility on the 4th of July. It was the launch of this new facility. And I sat in the stands like everybody else. And I was moved, physically moved, because it was overwhelming what they did with what I thought was wire and cable connectors. So I approach it from a different standpoint of, should you go do advertising? Should you open up a studio and try to get outside clients to come in? And I think my position would be maybe not. Don't lose track of who you are. You're supporting an organization like whether it's the Denver Broncos or it's the Denver Nuggets or it's the Cleveland Browns, whoever it is. That's what you do, and you need to take that technology and use it for those purposes.
Like one more.
End of pitch.
Yeah, one more question. I'll open it up for quote. Jeff, you touched on it. I'm just curious, this wasn't part of our discussion, but I'm curious as to the trend now as it pertains to renovations and/or new builds, both pro and college. Where does the role and the importance of dedicating a true studio space, where is that now? I mean, I remember it was back 15 years ago, then it kind of went away. How is that trend right now as far as dedicating studio space?
So in pro sports, I think most NFL teams now have some sort of a studio presence or are certainly planning one. I think as a part of most of the renovations that we do, we're providing a studio space either along with the control room or very shortly in a couple of cases, it was the next summer. They said, hey, we need a studio for this. And the studio runs multiple applications in an NFL model. Most teams are using it, some more effectively than others, as an in-game element to do their fantasy football scores live from like an anchor desk with a Sports Center type of feel. Others are using it to do quarter breaks and halftime breaks with past players doing commentary on what happened in the first half. So there's a bunch of different ways that NFL teams are utilizing it in-game, and then also using it during the week to produce coaches' shows and web elements and all of the other things that they're mandated by the league to do now, both for their local over-the-air partners as well as their web presence. On the college side, studio spaces have taken on a much greater role as well, simply because of the broadcasting element. Most universities on some level are now also their own content provider and their own television broadcast network alongside of creating control room content. So whether it's on ESPN or part of a conference-based digital network that's like the Mountain Digital Network or the American Digital Network or any of those conferences, or something as full-blown as the SEC network where schools have $10 and $12 million budgets, studios are an integral part of all of those projects.
What about on the arena side? Are they, I can just, my experience with the Amway Center, I was told no studio.
Yeah, and I think Duane and Fitz may correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most of our studio presence has been on the NFL side just because of how the rights are dictated and who can provide what content and what type of content they can provide. So I don't know that amongst our MLB and NHL and NBA clients that's been a real demand simply because of the restrictions that are placed on what they can provide by the league from a content perspective.
All right. Any questions? We're kind of just wrapping up the whole idea of maximizing the I'll just an anecdotal story with one of the ways with when I was at Amway Center, we implemented back in between 2005 2009, we did what's called Orlando Magic Broadcast Services, which was basically we did live shots for Fox, CNN, non-sports, had nothing to do with sports, had nothing to do with the team, but we implemented that simply because we had the resources there. And, it took a little operational juggling to make that happen. But that was a very eye-opening and a successful experience for us. We did it for about 3.5 years, then we went to build the new building, and focus changed, and we stuck to our core of what we were. But that was, a couple $100,000 a year just laid in our lap, basically, because it was very easy. But that was taking advantage of that. The infrastructure, we had studio space, we had cameras, we had people, and boom, it just made sense. So that's just an opportunity of taking advantage of something that you already have that may be outside the realm of sports, right? So any questions for these guys? There we go. Andrew Rushing. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nick Gold with Chesapeake Systems. So the question was raised, but I don't know if there was a real solid answer that came out. What are you guys finding as far as your actual control room operators wanting to gain access to the media asset management systems that your kind of production groups and post-production groups may be standing up and operating? You mentioned that there's more and more editorial itself coming into the control rooms. Are you tying those facilities into the databases that are cataloging, the team's video history? Is there call for that?
Well, let me say this. It was interesting here at the Broncos because we had a consultant that did the design and built the budget, and I came on board. We won the bid, and I came on board, and the first thing Pat said to me is, you got to find $500,000 in this budget so I can buy my storage. Because it wasn't missed, I would say, in the design, but the money wasn't there for it. And that was a real focus for him at that moment. He realized that the content he was creating has tremendous value. So I don't think we get $500,000, but we managed to squeeze some money out of it and buy storage and an asset management. But I do believe it has to be part of the planning and part of the process now, because there's great value in that product. We used to put it on tape and shove it on a shelf, and now we have to have access to it immediately, or not near line for sure.
And generally speaking, you see those two entities within the stadium and arena market held separately, the control room and the production side of things. And the reality is that they need to be looked at as an entirety of the production, because it's not just about feeding that LED board anymore. And so you may want to, a lot of times we're talking teams that want to do more. They want to give more replay during game in progress, or more highlight reels, to get fans fired up in between quarters. And the only way to do that is tie the two systems together. And you do it via software, right? Via asset management and storage, to be able to take video that is all your different camera angles being aggregated in your replay devices, whether that be, Dreamcatcher, EVS, Dyno. All those devices can also be feeding real-time into storage, multicam into storage that's accessible by their editorial department or their post-production. And we find teams now that are staffing so that they can produce live in-game content and not only be feeding canned material, but feeding game-in-progress material back to the control room and to digital and to handheld devices, second screen. So it's critical, from my point of view, that it begin to be integrated into the overall plan.
Yeah, in the last 24 months, probably 70 to 80% of all projects that we've done included a shared storage, asset management, and archival solution as a part of it. Projects that we've done from the 24-month window back to, say, maybe 5 years, probably 60% of those customers have come back and asked for the same thing. I think a lot of times before the last 24 months, it was difficult to get funding for that because it was even harder to prove an ROI and use case for that for organizations and for some of our college clients than the control room. We had, I think, at least 2 customers who got funding once the little Lacey drives that they had some footage on, that's the only place that existed in the entire world, lost that footage and it was gone forever. So I think people are starting to see the value of that as there's more and more content that's being asked to be created. There has to be an effective way to manage that. So a big production center without a shared storage and asset management piece is really only getting you about 85% of the solution, probably even maybe a little bit less.
And back to Fitz, when we started the process with Chris Williams, et cetera, we had an asset management. We were into the Apple product at the time. Unfortunately, they phased that out about the time we really started breaking ground with our project. So we were kind of behind the 8 ball and needing to find a solution at that time. We ended up with Facilis, TerraBlock, about 48 terabytes of shared storage. We have 6 NLE stations. When we started the project, we were at Final Cut. Now we're with Adobe. We now just bought into, with our IT department, about 98 terabytes of NetApp storage. That'll be kind of our tier 2 storage. So,
Any other questions? Wrap it up. Thank you, gentlemen.
wrap it up.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.